No introduction. Thank you. అంటే ఇప్పుడే చప్పట్లు కొట్టేసి ఇప్పుడే దిగిపోతాను మీ ఉద్దేశం. కానీ వచ్చిన వాళ్ళందరినీ కూడా ఏదో చేసి పంపిద్దామనే ఉంది నాకు కూడా. సో కాబట్టి friends, this session is all about GST notices, demands, and also the GST so far, and what is the way forward. So basically we can divide it into two topics. So one is with regard to 5 years of GST and what is the way forward. Right, what we will do is first we will deal with that topic and come back to the notices part, right? So first let me go to that part of the PPT. Right. So from here we will start. Screen share wala close chena. Okay, right. Next, screen share PPT share. Okay, right. Slideshow. Right. So 5 years of GST challenges and way forward. We will deal with this part of the session first, and later we will go into the notices, etc. So friends, we already know that GST was introduced on and from 1st July of 2017, and it is almost 5 years and 6 months by this time. Okay, roughly. So it is not that everything is negative or everything is not fine with GST. It is not like that. Some things have worked, but of course there are some things we have to live with the GST. We have to live with GST for the coming decades, right? So what we will understand is, first of all, what has worked for the GST. First we will try to understand. Thereupon what we will try to analyze is what are the difficulties that is being faced currently, and later on we will move on to certain suggestions or certain things, if implemented, will it enable this system to function in a better manner. So we'll divide our session of this part into these many number of topics. So friends, first we will understand as to what has worked for GST. Now there has been a cooperation between the center and states. We all know that there was a constitutional amendment to bring in this type of GST. This is dual concurrent taxation. You all understand that the current form of GST is one which is dual concurrent taxation. If we go into previous regimes of indirect taxes, what used to happen is the state governments have their own legislations for levying tax on sale or purchase of goods within the state. So for intra-state sale, there used to be legislations of every state separately. But for interstate movement of goods, what used to be there is, there used to be a tax called CST, Central Sales Tax, was the tax which was in vogue until the GST was introduced on and from 1st July 2017. Now previously, as per our constitution, the central government did not have the power to levy tax on intrastate sales. So for the central government to assume power for taxing the intrastate sales, there was a necessity for a constitutional amendment, right? Similarly, under the S12 constitution before amendment, the state governments did not have the power to tax on services. So by the constitutional amendment, that amendment has enabled the state governments to levy tax on services, and that amendment has enabled the central government to levy tax on intrastate sale of goods, right? So now this dual concurrent taxation, what will happen is, on every supply, previously the point of taxation used to be sales. But later under the GST regime, what has happened is the point of taxation was supply. Supply of goods or service, right? Now, this under the dual concurrent taxation, what will happen is both the central government and state government will concurrently levy tax on the same transaction. Under the S12 laws, there used to be a cascading effect, means a tax on tax. But this GST system has been designed in such a fashion that there will be dual concurrent taxation, but there will not be any cascading effect. That means there will not be any tax on tax. By this time, you might have already known, everyone will be knowing as to what do you mean by this cascading effect. Cascading effect is nothing but tax on tax. Right. Next, previously, under the previous tax regimes, now why are we even till after the implementation of 5 years, why are we discussing the S12 taxation system? In order to appreciate what the benefits we have derived from the implementation of GST, we should also understand certain deficiencies which were there in the earlier system of taxation. Right. Under the previous regime, there used to be a large number of exemptions. There used to be large number of exemptions. Each state, what they used to do is, depending upon their local circumstances and customs and traditions, they used to exempt certain categories. The categories of goods which were exempted by the respective state governments may not be in line with the exemptions of the neighboring states, or for that matter, other states. So with that distortion, there was a danger that there used to be smuggling of goods. Let us say these pulses or grams are exempted under the S12 VAT system in the state of Tamil Nadu. But in the state of Andhra Pradesh, they used to be taxed those, the tax rate of VAT on pulses and grams used to be 5%. So what used to happen is, there was a smuggling. There was smuggling as far as these goods are concerned, and the government was, there was a loss to the exchequer as far as the taxes on these goods or commodities are concerned. Now that under GST, what has happened is, the number of exemptions have been minimized, point number one. Not only minimization of the number of items for which exemption will be given, not only that, coupled with that, the exemptions which are granted by different states are one and the same. So since this is a dual concurrent taxation, there being cooperation between the state government and the central government, the items of taxes on which exemption will be given has been almost minimized to a handful of items. Not only that, it is uniform across all these states. Thereby, certain disadvantages which were existing in the S12 tax system has been removed by the introduction of this GST. And also, in the coming future, likewise in Income Tax Act, the number of exemptions available will be minimized, or on a day we may see a situation wherein you may not be having any exemptions, but the tax rates will also be rationalized to that extent. Right now, in the coming days also, we can even still see a situation wherein for those items which are enjoying the exemption currently will lose their exemption in the coming days. To give you a classic example, if you take the example of unbranded rice, unbranded grams and dals, previously at the time of introduction of GST, there used to be a differentiation for branded and unbranded. Now that this year that difference has been removed, and only where under the legal metrological act, if it is the package is more than 25 kilograms, then only for unbranded you have exemption. And also if you examine, there used to be an exemption for freight in respect of 750 rupees, 1500 rupees, you already know. Now, at the time of budget, what they will do is, in order to remove certain exemptions, they will bring in an exemption or remove an exemption wherein all the people will be discussing about the removal of that exemption. But under the carpet, what will happen is there will be very many number of exemptions, very number of provisions wherein the exemption would be removed. One such type of removal of exemption is with regard to this freight. All of our busy as to understand as to what do you mean by legal metrological act, what is the packages that have the, what is the minimum threshold package for which this metrological act will be applicable. All of us were under those studying those provisions. But what happened is silently they have removed this exemption. So in the coming days also, whatever items are there in the exemption notification, maybe if not all may be removed at one point of time, but in the near future down the line, within 4 or 5 years, we may see a situation wherein most of the exemptions might have been removed by that time. So friends, so this basket of items which are exempted from tax, it will be minimized over the period of time. Thereby, the chain of this passing of input tax credit will not break. For example, a person manufactures a product wherein he uses 2 or 3 raw material which are subjected to tax. He uses 1 or 2 raw material which is exempted. By that, he is going to manufacture an output which is taxable. Now, what will happen is this 42, 43 will come into play. Thereby, the common inputs which have been used are, for example, you may be using certain products which are chargeable to tax. You may be manufacturing a product which may be exempt from tax. So what will happen is, if there are these types of distortions, what will happen is the chain of input tax credit will be broken. Now, that is not good for any type of a tax system. So, one of the welcome move that has been taken, of course, some of you may not agree with my line of argument that minimization of exemptions is a welcome move, but nonetheless, in the coming future, we will understand that this type of taxation will reap more benefits than the system wherein you have a lot number of exemptions. And also, another welcome move by this introduction of GST taxation is we have common tax regulation across the country. So previously, what was happening was there were very many number of legislations and almost more than 15 or 17 taxes have been subsumed into GST. Not only that, the sweetest part is that most of the laws, previously they used to be different for each state, but as far as GST is concerned, we have a uniform tax law applicable across country. Now that was the intention of introduction of the GST, and it was introduced with a liner called One Nation, One Tax on July 1st, 2017. Yes. So because there are many number of distortions, we are unable, the government is unable to implement the GST in the manner in which they have thought, or in the manner in which the industry and the trading community has thought. That is the main reason, right? Now, because of introduction of this GST, certain states previously under the erstwhile regime, the manufacturing state used to get the tax share, because if the manufacturing state, let us say, let us take the example of a manufacturing state of Maharashtra, Gujarat. What will happen is they used to manufacture the goods, then what will happen is they will sell it to, let us say, if they sell it to Andhra Pradesh, CST used to be levied. Now CST was collected by the seller, and that amount was retained by the government of Maharashtra. But as far as GST is concerned, GST is a consumption tax. So what will happen is the major portion of the revenue will come to the state wherein the product has been ultimately consumed. Now, under the VAT law, what happened? The money was taken by the Maharashtra. But under this GST regime, what will happen is the money will be taken by the Andhra Pradesh if the goods are consumed here. Thereby, the Maharashtra would suffer, and they did not agree for implementation of GST. For that purpose, what the central government has done is they have introduced the compensation for first 5 years of implementation of GST. Now this compensation, what happened is this has expired, and it is not further extended by this time. Now because of this, we may face a challenge in the coming days. We may face a challenge in the coming days. Now this GST regime, though it has a many number of drawbacks, be it in its implementation or be in its administration, but nonetheless, we have passed through the initial hiccups, we have passed through COVID, but still what has happened is the system was so robust that the collections have gained momentum. If you observe, the October month GST collections were also at around 1,48,000 crores. Until COVID, it used to be some 1 lakh crores. In the COVID times, it has dropped below 1 lakh crores per month collections. But now for the last 2 or 3 months, the collections have crossed 1,40,000 crores. And in October, it was around 1,48,000 crores of collections. Right? Now, generally, this administration, this being a dual concurrent taxation, what happened is this administration will be done by the GST Council. Around 47 meetings have taken place by this time. The 48th meeting is scheduled somewhere in this month or next month. I don't remember correctly. Right. Now, the first 20 to 25 meetings were carried out, or those meetings were in what you call good exchange of pleasantries, because there will be something called as a honeymoon period. Now, after 25 meetings were concluded, the honeymoon period ended. And now from the 26th or 27th meeting onwards, what happened is this council consisting of representations from various states, what happened is they have started to debate, or they have started to oppose certain types of decisions which are going to be taken by the GST Council. So everyone started to raise their voice, and everyone started to put forth their concerns as far as the GST rate structure or as far as the law which has been currently in force. They have started their concerns. Now, recently what Supreme Court has done is, what they have told is, the states has the right to taxation, and you need not just follow what the GST Council says. Now, there may be a positive side for this also, because once the Supreme Court has opined in such a manner, what might happen in the GST Council is, they may debate, they may come to a consensus, or everyone will take decisions in such a manner that the interest of all the people are taken care of. But there will also be certain challenges by this saying of the Supreme Court. Now that for the first 25 meetings, everything was going on well. From 26th or 27th meeting, people started to raise their concerns or voices. Coupled with the Supreme Court saying that you need not listen to GST Council, you have your own flexibility to take the decisions, right? Now, if everything is okay, if everyone take it in a positive sense, there will not be any problem. But once the compensation period ended by this year, Supreme Court giving such a judgment or passing such a remark, state governments being in need of funds, now a situation may arise that states individually may take a decision to increase the rates, or maybe in certain cases they may also decrease the case, but that situation may not arise. Decreasing the rates may not arise, but a situation may arise that the rates may be increased by the respective state governments. Thereby again the distortion will start, and one nation one tax, whatever slogan has been raised, it will get a beating, right? Let us all hope that this may not happen, but there is a possibility or there is a danger that such a situation may arise in the future because of the needs of the state governments, or and also because of the stopping of the compensation by the central government, right? So yes, that is why I'm saying that distortions will start. If in Kerala, if they don't want to implement, then what will happen is smuggling will be started by Tamil Nadu and bordering Karnataka. Because if you buy in Kerala, what will happen? You will be saving 5%. So the neighboring states of Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, what will happen is the smuggling will start and they will be losing on the tax front. When you have purchased if you don't want to pay tax in Tamil Nadu, what do you have to do? You will not make an account for purchase in Kerala. If you make an account for purchase in Kerala, when B2B transaction has been uploaded, that person can't sell in Tamil Nadu. If he sells in Tamil Nadu, what will happen? He has to pay tax if it is accounted for. Thereby, again, unaccounted transactions will start, as in VAT. But at the time of purchase also, he will purchase it unaccounted purchase. Because sale has to be unaccounted, purchase will also be unaccounted. No, as per the amended constitution and as per the other articles of the constitution, ours being a federal state, the central government cannot enforce it on states because the states, under the framework of the constitution, state government has a certain flexibility to levy taxation. Now, what is happening now? Whatever the GST Council says, they have to follow. Now, in the GST Council, whose word will win? Central government and its allied parties governments. So what is happening is the person at power in the central government is able to exercise control over the state government through GST Council. Now this is against the federal framework of our constitution. So thereby the Honorable Supreme Court has given such a observation in the judgment. Kerala government, if it don't want to collect a tax on unbranded, though it is less than 25 kgs, but actually it can't be done like that unless otherwise they have amended their law.
So what is CGST correct here as per notification rule any prakaram? GST what Kerala government
yes. No. To their extent, only to the extent of SGST. So the distortion will start. What will happen? 2.5 will be GST, SGST will be 0. If such a rule has been implemented in that particular state, there will be distortions. If everything is accounted for the dealer, what will happen is, if such rule, I don't know whether it has been implemented or not, if it has been implemented, he has to collect the CGST, but the GST will be taken as exemption. Yes, that will lead to serious implications. CGST 5% can't be collected. Yes. So now, for any taxpayer, for him to carry on business in an efficient and effective manner, two things has to be assured as far as the indirect taxation or direct taxation is concerned. The first one being there should be consistency in law, and also the rates of tax at which it will be chargeable should be predictable. These two twin conditions should be satisfied for a particular dealer or for a particular SSE to carry on his business, right? Now, we are in a situation wherein there are many number of amendments, circulars, notification, etc., 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 coming each and every month. Now, these persons the businessmen, instead of doing their business, what is happening is they are required to concentrate more on compliance of law. Now, if these amendments or changes, if they are effected or implemented maybe once in a while, it will be easy. We should understand that, I should confess that, I also did not go through the amendment that 750 rupees, 1500 rupees threshold limit has been removed, maybe for at least 1 or 2 months after the notification was enabled. And I can tell with utmost confidence that most of the businessmen or dealers do not even know till today that this 750 threshold limit has been removed. Even still, some people are continuing to take exemption of 750 rupees for the freight reverse charge, right? So, for a business to be carried on in a smooth fashion, first of all, there should be a consistent law and the rates should be predictable. Now, if the states are given the flexibility of changing the law, what will happen is the objective with which this GST law has been introduced and implemented will be vitiated. Now, this poses a very serious threat in the coming days. At least some of the people got accustomed to filing of 3B or filing of GSTR1 or filing of 9 and 9C. Yes, the people got somewhat accustomed, what they are doing is they are changing the form or they are changing the rules every now and then. Right? Now, these frequent changes or modifications will not help the business or will not help the business to comply with the existing law. Now, if the law is not consistent, if the rates are not predictable, coupled with the state governments being given the flexibility of amending the law or the rules or the rates, then it will cause a serious threat to the saying of one nation, one tax. Right? Now, in order to face this threat, what has to be done? It is the responsibility of the GST Council to keep the pact together. So what they have to do? They have to listen to every state. They have to take into consideration the concern of each and every state. Only when you take the concern or take into account the aspirations of all the member states and take a decision. Unless you do such a thing, there is a threat that we may face a distortion in the coming future. And that is not good. All voices are to be heard, all aspects are to be covered, and the combined law and combined structure, what we have having now, we should ensure and see that this is not disturbed. That we should understand. Now, what might be the big changes we may be seeing in the coming future? What is happening is, as CA Madhusudan, who has told just now, because of the 17 subsection 5, blocked credit, certain items wherein the tax has been borne are not allowed for input tax credit. Now, because of this, what will happen is the rates of the prices of those commodities or goods will become expensive. There may be cascading effect also. Also, certain provisions of the law, certain rules are even till today somewhat complex in nature. At the plain reading of that, we may not be able to understand or we may not be able to interpret in the right manner what the legislation has thought. Yes, in the 9C also, yesterday in one of the table, those transactions of this financial year dealt by in the next year, you have the heading in such fashion. But as far as that 13th point or 14th point is concerned, in that, what will they say is credit of previous year taken. Now, what is that previous year? There will be confusion. The legislation might have drafted that keeping in view certain way. But as the persons who are going to comply, we may interpret or read it in another fashion. So, this is there. The blocked credit as well as the complexly written act and rules, if not the entire act and rule, at least some portions, they are complex. One of the biggest challenge which is being faced by very many number of business houses is with respect to the matching of input tax credit. So friends, what are all I am telling, or what is all that have been told by me till now is at a conceptual level. Now, I'm afraid if all of you are catching me with the concept, especially students. మీకు అర్థమవుతుందండి నేను ఏం చెప్తున్నాను? స్టూడెంట్స్ ఒకసారి చెప్పండి. నిస్సహాయ స్థితిలో ఉన్నటువంటి వాళ్ళందరూ కూడా కాన్సెప్చువల్ లెవెల్లో ఏం చెప్తున్నానో ఐడియా వస్తుందా మీకు? ఐడియా వస్తుంది కదా? Right. If you face any difficulty, you kindly ask me, or if you don't understand at any point of time, you kindly ask me. Okay. So what you had in 9 and 9C, B, etc. was different. Now what I am talking is different. I am talking at a conceptual level instead of a procedural level. Friends, do you all know what do you mean by avoiding cascading effect? What is a cascading effect? Cascading effect means tax on tax. Let us say I have purchased a product. For that matter, do you know how many types of indirect taxes are there? There are 3 types of indirect tax collections. One is a single point taxation. Another one is multi-point taxation. Another one is retail point taxation. What do you mean by single point taxation? In single point taxation, tax will be levied at only one place. At only one place. One place means the manufacturer sells goods to the distributor. Only the manufacturer will collect the tax, but the next remaining chain, they won't collect tax. Now, let us say manufacturer sold for 100, retailer sold for 200. The government is going to tax only on 100. It won't get a tax on the balance 100 rupees. Under retail point of taxation, tax won't be collected until the last stage of the chain. Only from the retailer, they will collect the tax. In this system, government will not have any loss, consumer will not have any loss. That type of system can't be implemented in our country. Right? Because in our country, the last leg or last mile sale is done by unorganized sector. Even now, most of the products bought by majority of the people will be on footpaths or on with the hawkers. That type of taxation is not available in India. It is not implementable in India. There is another point of taxation called multi-point taxation. In multi-point taxation, what will happen is tax will be levied at every point of sale. On 100, there will be tax collected. 100 plus 10 rupees, 10% assume 110. Next, the distributor on 110, he will collect 10%. Means 11 rupees. What is happening is on the 10 rupees also 10% is applied. Thereby the tax became 11. That 1 rupee is cascading effect. Now this VAT system or GST system, what will take to do is, it will try to avoid the cascading system. Now let me say, manufacturer sold it to the distributor for 100, tax is 10 rupees, 110. We will keep this 10 rupees aside. Now, the distributor made a value addition of 20. So 120. On 120, tax is 10%, 12 rupees. 12 will be the output tax. 10 rupees will be the input credit. Thereby, the distributor will pay to the government only rupees 2. Now, this is called as value added taxation. Tax of 2 rupees, 20 rupees into 10% is 2 rupees. This is called as value added tax. GST is based on VAT. But actually, instead of paying on 20 rupees 10%, what are we going to do? On 120 rupees, you will be levying 10%, 12 rupees output tax. The preceding point, what you have paid? 10 rupees. That will be reduced. The balance 2 rupees, you have to pay to the government. Now, most of you are agitating that whatever the government is implementing is wrong. How can you do like that? How it is possible? Could you understand as to what I am telling? I am driving home a point. Yesterday and day before yesterday also, we have discussed one point that if the vendor do not pay to the government, if the vendor do not pay to the government, how can you deny the tax to the dealer? Everybody is agitating and everybody is cursing the government in this regard. My dear friends, the concept of VAT itself is based upon a principle that the government is allowing you only the input tax credit because at the preceding point you have received the money. Now let us understand, I am the manufacturer. I am selling the goods for 100 rupees. Tax rate is 10%. Let us say everything is going to happen in Andhra Pradesh. Now, Madhusudan bought from me. How much money did I collect from Madhusudan? 110. Very good. 100 what I have done? I kept it for myself. 10 rupees what I have done? Tax. What I have done with that? I have paid to Jagan sir. Right? Now Madhusudan is a distributor. What Madhusudan has done is, he has a value added 20 rupees. Now Madhusudan is going to sell it for 120 rupees because 10 rupees Madhusudan has parked in his books as input tax credit. Now 100 is the cost for him apart from tax. 100 plus value addition, how much? 20. Means 120 is the selling price. On 120, 10% is 12 rupees. What is, how much you have to pay? How much you have to pay? Madhusudan has to pay 12 rupees. The liability on Madhusudan is not 2 rupees. The government has imposed a levy of 12 rupees on Madhusudan. First, you should understand that. How much did the government levy on you? Government levied 12 rupees on Madhusudan. The tax liability of Madhusudan is 12 rupees. It is not 2 rupees. Tax liability of Madhusudan is 12 rupees. But what will Madhusudan do? From the tax liability of 12 rupees, he will take an input credit of 10 rupees. Now, why Jagan sir is allowing Madhusudan to pay only 2 rupees? Because already Jagan sir received 10 rupees. That is why now he is only allowing to take or allowing Madhusudan to pay 2 rupees only. That is the main crux you have to understand. The GST system itself or the VAT system itself depends on the principle that input tax credit is allowed only because I have received rupees 10 at an earlier point of time. Now, how can you question a government that if a vendor has defaulted the payment, why are you penalizing the SSC for payment, or why are you denying input tax credit? It has to be denied. Some of you may not agree with me, but this is the concept. Sir, this is the concept. This is the concept of VAT. I will come to that, sir. Now, my intention is that allowing input tax credit only when the amount has been received by the government at the previous leg of the transaction is a correct thing. Is a definitely a correct thing. The question arises, Can you implement such a system in a country like ours? Is the question. Why the vendor is not paying to the government? Dishonesty. Why dishonesty? Greed. Because of greed, there is dishonesty. Because of dishonesty, the vendor is not paying the tax to the government. When government did not receive the 10 rupees legally receivable by it at a preceding point of time, how can I expect to allow the government to make an input tax credit for me? Then government will be at a loss of how much? Government will be at a loss of, what is the levy on you, sir? 12 rupees. So you paid only 2. So from you 10 rupees has to be received. Because at preceding point of time, the vendor has not paid the tax. So it is compelling the person who bought the goods and subsequently selling to compensate that loss incurred by the government. Right? But in a country like ours, it is difficult to implement. They are trying. There are ways and means to overcome this difficulty. There are ways and means to overcome this difficulty that we will discuss at a just in a bit of time from now. Yes. 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 Now, what I have argued till now is the concept of VAT and the concept of GST. But in a country like ours, where dishonesty rules because of greed, I am not only saying that there is dishonesty in only in our country. There are very many number of countries, or for that matter, in all countries, there are people who are dishonest because of greed. Because of this implementation of this matching concept, small people are suffering in the current structure. Big people are not suffering. You know why? Because if a big company purchases goods from a small person, he will pay only the selling price. He won't pay the GST amount. What he is doing? Only once this person proves that he paid tax to the government, you have to take a screenshot of the GSTR1. You have to also give your GSTR3B copy to that person. Then only the tax amount will be remitted by that big player to this small person. That big person is able to control this, and he is not subjected to loss. But the small person can't act like a big person. Thereby there is a distortion. Therefore, there is no natural justice. If the justice is of one kind to Madhusudan, it should also be the same kind to me. That is why there is a significance of case laws. Why case laws are to have significance? Because if on a particular situation, the court has given a judgment to a particular person on the same matter in such fashion, the person residing in that state also should get the equal justice as that of the other person. So case laws have significance. So friends, big people are not suffering, small people are suffering for the implementation of this matching concept, which is not just. Law should be equal for everyone. Because of matching concept, MSME is suffering, the big fella is not suffering. So courts have intervened. Because there is no natural justice in the same fashion as available to Madhusudan, not available to Kishore, or if available to Kishore, not available to Madhusudan, that is not proper and just. So courts have intervened and stated that because this is the beginning, this implementation of a matching concept is not just on the part of the government, because some persons are subjected to undue disadvantage, right? Now, what is happening is nowadays, with this introduction of e-way bills, e-invoicing, etc., the compliance has also become real time. The compliance has also become real time. Now, coupled with that, compliance becoming real time, coupled with that, the states and the central government alike, what they are going to do, they want to enforce the matching principle also. By matching principle, what will happen? You will be allowed the input credit only when the person from whom you have bought the goods has paid to the government. They want to implement this. Now, the law going in this direction, the big people won't be affected. But who will get affected? The small people will get affected. Now, it is on the government and the GST Council and the states to look into this matter very seriously. That because of this matching principle and credit not allowed unless the vendor has paid to the government, small businesses are got affected adversely. Now, you should check this issue. You should try to rationalize. Yes, of course, there is a bad principle that only when at the preceding point of time, if you get money, then only the subsequent fellow in the line will be able to take the input credit. But now, whether we are able to implement in a correct manner and equally to all people or not, is the thing which it is the duty of the government to look into and take corrective actions and ensure that the small people are not adversely affected. Right? Moving forward, one of the other challenge which is being faced currently is with regard to the exercise or disproportionate exercise of power by the officers. Now, Supreme Court has also intervened and stated that or suggested that the power to arrest people or apprehend people should be used sparingly and only after giving show cause notice. Friends, in our country as well as in countries elsewhere, there is a menace of fake invoicing, or there is a menace of dishonest taxpayers. Now, for the purpose of disciplining those type of people, if you implement or exercise your powers, there won't be any problem. But when you exercise your disproportionate force on a small person, then comes the problem. Really, there is an honest person. That person, in good faith, bought goods from some X. He also discharged his consideration. He sold the goods. He, in good faith, has taken the input credit, paid the balance amount to the government. Now, going to that person, arresting him for taking off wrong input credit because the vendor has not paid it to the government is not a suitable and a just thing on the part of the officer to exercise his power. Of course, the law may give many number of powers to the officers, but those powers have to be exercised judiciously. Right? Of course, our Supreme Court has intervened in this matter, and also they have suggested that you prepare guidelines as to how to deal about these cases, when to exercise the power of arrest, and also what is the mode in which the investigation is to be done. So what they have suggested is to give certain guidelines as far as these exercising of powers by the government officials were taken. Now, the main problem is the vendor becomes untraceable. Though they will even go to the vendor also if that person is traceable. Because after all, first of all, the tax has to be discharged by that person only. So not only that, I will tell you an example which we are going through currently, the income tax example. We have many number of people without knowing actually how to comply the law. They are doing all sorts of things and pushing the SSEs into undue hardships. One of my client who is a partner in a partnership firm, that partnership firm entered into a development agreement for some 20 crores or something like that. That partnership firm, we are not the auditors, but the partner in that partnership firm, for that person, we are the consultants. That partnership firm entered into a development agreement for 20 crores. The sub-registrar office has uploaded the entry to the income tax department in the annual information statement that this fellow has that property. Now, the other partner in the firm died. The legal heads of that deceased partner are in not good terms with my client, the other partner. They have taken over the affairs of the partnership firm without the knowledge and a dissolution of the firm. Income tax department gave a notice to the firm which my client is not aware of. It was in the e-assessment proceedings, nobody attended. That fellow made best judgment assessment, levying a demand of some crores. After all these things have happened, now the department, after inquiry, gave a notice to my client that they will be attaching his property. But the fun fact of the matter is, the firm has still certain assets. Even my client trying to impress upon the commissioner that the firm has assets, they are not interested to go against the assets of the firm, but they are more interested to confiscate the assets of my client. You might have understood the reasons which are behind it. So what, because you have told that point, I just that point struck me. You are saying that they have to go to the vendors. In the income tax case also, first what they have to do? They have to go to the firm. But they are not at all after the firm. They are only interested to go after this person.
Can they go, sir? Can they go?
Sir, it is natural justice, and as per Partnership Act also, where the firm has assets, how can they proceed against the partner, sir? They cannot. But there are certain compelling reasons there for them not to go against the firm, but to go against this partner. This person, even before the death of the other partner, went into arbitration also in the Honorable Undivided High Court of the Andhra Pradesh. So people going to court, generally those matters won't settle easily. So even after some 6 or 7 or 8 years, till now, that arbitration proceedings are pending. So what I may want to impress upon is that these people are after this SSE because generally that vendor will become untraceable. That fellow being dishonest, even there are certain mills, cloth mills in the western part of the country, wherein our people buy goods from them. Every 2 years, the factory owner will change. After 3 years, if your case is subjected to scrutiny, if you want to get the what you call confirmation letters, that factory won't be running in this person's name. Already it is gone. So those things are happening. But generally, our clients will be at the receiving end. So, yes. So, friends, there is a very much need for the simplification of tax as far as the small taxpayers are concerned. Under the erstwhile law, there used to be monthly or quarterly returns. But what this GST has done, it has introduced monthly returns reporting at the transaction level. Reporting at the transactional level. During the initial 2 or 3 years of the implementation of GST, there were very many number of circulars and notifications simplifying the procedures. I even still remember the then Honorable Finance Minister Arun Jaitley saying that only if you have a invoice, original invoice in your hand, then you are eligible to take the credit. And also there are some press releases, etc., tweets, etc., stating that even though there are minor mistakes in the invoice, the person who bought the goods or services are eligible to take the input credit. Those promises were made. Some of them were written promises. But you know what is happening now? Notices are being issued for 1718, 1819, 1920, stating that input credit taken by you is not being reflected in 2A. Right? So, also, at the time of introduction of GST, knowingly or unknowingly, many people have committed many mistakes, which have huge tax implications. But there is no window to correct them. Of course, there may be 1 or 2 situations wherein TRAN is not properly filed because some big people have went to the courts and the courts have given direction that you have to reopen the TRAN. As far as the TRAN is concerned, it may be okay. But what about the other things which the SSCs have or the accountants have committed? What about those mistakes? So, even now, the government should take a call that first 5 years, let us take it as a special case. The first 5 years of implementation of GST, let us treat it as a special case and be lenient. Because those days, the government authorities, even the highest people, have promised that the input credit will be allowed based on your document or tax invoice. But now the ground reality, what is happening? The ground reality, what it is happening is the persons who are implementing the GST law, the administration, they are not implementing those words in true spirit. ఆయన వెళ్ళాడు అంటారు ఆయన లేరు కదా, you go and ask him. Right. The then Honorable Finance Minister has given in a press release that you are eligible to take the input credit on bills or original invoice. Now he is not there. Okay. If you want to ask anybody, go to him and ask. So that should not be the case. It should not be like that. right? Friends, there are issues. It is well accepted that there are issues. The only issue, or out of some issues, main issue is with regard to input tax credit. Now that e-invoicing first, it was introduced for 500, then 100, and then 50, 20. Now we are at a 10 or something like that. Maybe in the near future, it will be reaching 5. If e-invoicing come, most of the erstwhile problems with regard to input tax credit may be resolved. Because this e-invoicing system, there will not be that many number of distortions as far as this input tax credit is concerned, because the data will be captured in a more robust and efficient manner without there being many number of mistakes. So with e-invoicing, this matching concept is possible to a greater extent. Now, if a large number of transactions will get into the purview of e-invoicing, then this ITC menace may be resolved to greater extent, if not towards the full extent. So we should wish and pray that this 5 crores threshold limit comes sooner than later, or this 5 crores should may also be reduced to somewhere around 2 crores, because it may not be possible for us to expect that even a 1 crore people turnover person also has to go in for e-invoicing. So maybe somewhere around 2 to 5 crores is a respectable limit. Of course, the government may be thinking of 5 crores threshold limit, because GSTR 9C also is mandatory only for those who are 5 crores above, right?
6 digits to 5 crores.
HSN also 6-digit mandatory only for those SCs who are more than 5 crores. So this e-invoice, if implemented in a correct fashion, then some of the meanings of the ITC will be resolved, or to a greater extent will be resolved, if not the 100%. So friends, that is the thing as far as this 5 years of GST. What we have seen is, well, it is a robust tax system, but nonetheless, there are certain issues. One of the greater challenge which we may face in the near future is with regard to the flexibility to the states, wherein there will be distortion of law as well as tax with respect to different states. Again, we may be pushed into our erstwhile era, wherein there are number of rates and the rates are not alike across the country. There is a danger of going into that situation. However, GST Council should step in, take into consideration the aspirations, the sayings, or the concerns of each and every state, thereby keeping the pack combinedly. And also, as far as matching principle is concerned, small taxpayers are facing a lot number of difficulties, but you should address those issues. And e-invoicing is one of the classic thing wherein this ITC menace can be minimized, if not altogether eliminated. Right? So this, in a nutshell, that these are the things which are to be taken into consideration. Now, coming to we'll proceed with GST notices. What are they? We'll take a break for tea at 3:30. Okay. So friends, what all I have deliberated upon for this 1 hour or so is at a conceptual level, I don't understand as to how many of you could catch my words, but at least, if not all, some of you might have understood as to what I was speaking. Now, friends, coming back to the procedural aspects, these GST notices. So, what are the types of GST notices and what are the reasons for which they are issued? We'll go upon. Right? Now, what is a notice? A notice is a medium by which a communication is made by the GST authority to the assessee or the taxpayer. It is not that if a notice comes, this assessee or taxpayer should get frightened, because all notices may not be frightening. A notice is nothing but a medium of communication between two persons. Who are the two persons? One is the GST authority, the other one is the taxpayer. Now, the taxpayer should take a notice very seriously. The taxpayer should take the notice very seriously. One of my client, he has children. So whenever they receive any cover from the income tax department, they will see that cover and they will read that it is income tax department. Immediately they will put it in the waste basket. Right. Now my client, after some days, that he has gone through the trash, and that servant maid gave that unopened cover to this person, and that fellow brought it to the office. So it should not be like that. Whenever a taxpayer receives a notice, it should be dealt with utmost care. Now, what will happen if these notices are not taken into account or complied with properly? If the notices are not complied properly, there is a danger that they may incur some monetary losses in the way of fines. Or even at times that may lead to prosecution also. Now, in this part of our discussion, what are we going to deal? We are going to deal as to what are the main reasons for which the notices are issued, what are the types of notices, and how you have to deal those notices is the crux of this part of our discussion. Now, why do you receive a notice in first place? First of all, we should understand as to why a taxpayer receives a notice. Well, a notice is a communication between the GST authorities and the taxpayer that is taken. But why you may receive notice? There may be a variety of reasons for which you may receive notices. One of the reasons being incorrect utilization of ITC. You have taken an input credit which you are not eligible. Of course, yesterday CA Sudhir was dealing with one of the table 8A, if I remember correctly, which can be downloaded from the GSTR 9 menu, wherein if you open that table, in the last column, there is something called whether you are eligible for the input credit or not. Right? So there it might have been marked no, but that you might have taken. So it is a situation which will warrant the issue of a notice. There is a mismatch between your GSTR 1 and 3B. As per your GSTR 1, the output supply is so much. As per your GSTR 3B, the output supply is so much. So what you have to ensure? In order to avoid notice on this count, If you are into the practice of filing GSTR returns for your clients, ensure that your 3B matches 1. What will happen if 3B doesn't match with 1? If 3B doesn't match with 1, there is a danger that you are going to receive a notice. So what is that notice, etc.? We will deal at our later point of our discussion. Now we are discussing as to what are the main causes or reasons for which you are going to receive the notices. You are filing the returns late. Your monthly returns of GSTR1 and GSTR2, you are filing it late. Now, even there are circumstances wherein for a certain number of months, if you do not file your GSTR1 or 3B, your GST registration may get cancelled or suspended. First, they will suspend, and if they are not satisfied with the reason you give, they even may cancel your registration. There are inconsistent entries in your e-way bill and 1. Now that any person who has to raise e-way bill, being a regular dealer, then in GSTR1, he has a facility to import the data from the e-way bill portal. If you are a person dealing with filing of GSTR1, or you are the auditor, it poses a responsibility on us to educate that accountants that whenever they are populating GSTR1, they should take care not only that at the time of filing 3B, the value of outward supply should match with 1. Not only that, but your outward supply should also match with the e-way bill portal, if they are not importing it directly from the e-way bill. There should not be any distortion or disagreement between the data you gave to the e-way bill portal and the data now you are going to punch in the GSTR1. That you should take care. Anti-profiteering. Let us say, with effect from a particular date, the GST rate on a particular good or service was reduced. Let's take the example of goods only. This anti-profiteering generally applies to goods. If the tax rate has been reduced from a particular date under GST regime, because of rationalization of tax structure, if there is a reduction in rate, the benefit of the reduction in the tax rate should be passed on to the customer. If that is not done, the anti-profiteering provisions will get attracted. The anti-profiteering authority, what they will do is, they will assume jurisdiction and investigate the case further. You may receive a notice from them. Unjust enrichment. If you do not pass on the benefit of rate reduction to the customer, it results in unjust enrichment. That reduction in the rate is to be passed on to the customer. So whenever there is a reduction in the rate, ensure that the benefit is passed on to the customer, else you may get a notice. Claiming ineligible GST refund. In order to claim the GST refund is not unrestricted. It comes with certain conditions. You will be eligible for refund only if you satisfy all those conditions. You have filed a GST refund application without complying the conditions subject to which the GST refund will be awarded or granted. In such a situation, you are going to, or you are running into a risk of receiving a notice. Whatever exports you have made, you are not properly reflected in the GSTR 1. So with the export portal and your GST 1 data does not match, then also you may get a notice. Whenever you pay short taxes, then also you may get a notice. Somebody, the freight person, uploaded the freight payment as payable on reverse charge, but that is not reflecting in your GSTR 3B. Thereby, tax has been short paid by you. Now, everything being digitized and computerized, they are running a certain programs wherein all these types of inconsistencies will be generated by way of a report taxpayer wise. So, at the time of filing of the 3B itself, adequate care should be taken that as to who are the persons who have uploaded their invoices by marking as reverse charge yes. All those things should be kept in mind while furnishing the 1 or 3B, else we are running into a risk of getting a notice. Whenever the other person, because in reverse charge, generally the charge of GST is on the supplier. But in respect of certain cases, notified cases, the responsibility is on the recipient. If the supplier uploaded the invoice marking as reverse charge yes, the responsibility will be on the recipient only to pay the tax. Of course, there may be a situation wherein you can deny that such payment was not made by you. That is fine with you. But your issue, your query is to ask if the supplier has uploaded as by marking reverse charge as yes, right? On whom the responsibility will be fixed? It will be on the recipient only. For all reverse charge cases, the levy of tax is on the recipient. Right. So you want to correlate whenever the recipient of goods is denied credit because of non-payment of tax by the supplier or vendor. Now, won't those law be applicable on these people? Right. Now, all about GSTR 3A notice. Now, GSTR 3A is a type of notice. This notice will be given by the GST department or GST authorities to whom? A taxpayer. What is the mistake or default of that taxpayer? He has defaulted in furnishing certain returns. Whenever a taxpayer defaults in furnishing certain categories of returns, the 3A notice will be given. What are all the categories of returns, non-filing of which this 3A will be issued has been listed here. Of course, they are self-explanatory. I need not read all those things. What will happen, what you have to do if a 3A notice is given? For every notice, you have to comply. In fact, if returns are not actually filed by you, you have to file the return. For delayed furnishing of returns, you already know that late fees will be levied. For delayed furnishing of returns, you already know that late fee will be levied. CMP 08 को late fees. చేయట్లేదా Yes, same as in the case of 9 for the first 3 years. Yesterday and day before yesterday also, we were referring. Ready? Right. So we'll break in 2 minutes. Once this we conclude. So 3-year notice will be issued when there is a default in furnishing of certain returns. You have gone through those types of returns because of default of which this notice will be given. If you are filing it after due date, certain late fees will be levied. Now, even after you have been given 3A, within 15 days, you have to comply with the 3A notice by complying that notice. But even after those 15 days, if you don't comply, what will happen? What will happen is that the assessing officer won't leave this person. What he will do is, based upon the information available with him, he will carry on the best judgment assessment. If certain more information is required, he will ask his field authorities to gather the information for the purpose of carrying out that best judgment assessment. Of course, the section numbers, rule numbers, etc., form numbers are given in the slides. You can go through. I am not reciting those rules or section numbers, right? Yes, how they carry out the best judgment will depend, because this person is not filing one, but he is carrying on business, he is doing outward supplies. Nonetheless, the inputs will get populated in 2A. To that extent, he has purchased. They went to his premises. There is no stock. Deemed that has been sold. At what price? Definitely not the cost price. They will have certain basic percentages to apply. They will apply that percentage. They will determine the output tax. Now comes the conceptual thing, what I was referring earlier. What is the tax payable? Tax payable will be supply value into rate of tax, not for the value added. 12 rupees will be the output tax payable, and you won't be allowed the input tax rate. Input tax rate is denied. Yes. Yes.
వీళ్ళకి బిల్లు ఉంది. వీడు సేల్ చేశాడు, బిల్ ఇచ్చాడు కస్టమర్ కి, ఫైల్ చేయలేదు. వీళ్ళు వచ్చారు, వాడికి ఇన్పుట్ డినై చేశారు, ట్యాక్స్ కట్టించారు. అవతల క్రెడిట్ రూబీలో లేదు కదా.
This fellow, unless now that input credit will be allowed, only among the other conditions, it should be appear in your 2B. Kada. If it is not in 2B, then the person won't get straight away. No, once the best judgment has already been done, those things won't follow. Government, but it is not unjust enrichment. It can't become unjust enrichment because it is within the four corners of the law. That person has, the other person has discharged the liability, right? It went to the government. When input credit to the succeeding person is to be given, as per law, he should have sold it. He should have furnished his one and discharged the liability through 3B. for that person to avail the input tax credit, first of all, he should have filed 3B. If 3B itself was not filed, the question of giving input credit does not arise. So even though in that situation, no, the government is not, you say that the government has got a double tax, but it will not tantamount to unjust enrichment. It is not unjust enrichment. Misjudgment will be resorted to only when the taxpayer is not cooperating. 3 has been issued. Show cause 3A notice was given. He was asked to furnish the return and comply within 15 days by paying the late fees applicable. But even then he is not filing. Then only they will resort to best judgment. So only after giving reasonable opportunity only, then only the extreme step will be initiated.
Income tax information.
Yes.
Income tax website information.
Okay. Okay. Yes. So friends, we will try to finish off the remaining part also. So CMP 05 notices. Now, what is this CMP 05 notice? Now, it is also a show cause notice, and as the name suggests, it is given to a composition dealer. For composition dealer, he has to satisfy certain conditions which are given under section 10 of the CGST Act. Now, if it comes to the notice of the GST authorities that any of the provisions of this section 10 are violated, this notice will be given. You have to give reply within 15 days. And also, this person has to furnish giving the reasons for discrepancies. And if you don't comply with this CMP 05 notice, then best judgment assessment will be resorted to as a last resort. And also, this tax will be determined based upon the information provided by the respective GST officer. Now coming to REG 3. Suppose a person want to apply for GST registration, he will apply in REG 1. Now for applying REG 1, you have to provide certain information. You have to enclose certain documents along with your REG 1. Suppose there are any discrepancies in the information provided, either the information is not provided or the information provided is inadequate, or where all the documents required to be attached are not attached. In those situations, what will happen is you will be issued this GST REG 3 form. Of course, this is the format of the form. You can refer to that once this PPT is shared with you. This notice will be given in a situation wherein not all information is not given, or where the documents which are required to be enclosed are not enclosed. Yes, even in certain places, there are places where the door numbers are not yet allotted. This door number field being mandatory, those people are unable to include that premises or make registration also. So that is a problem. And also now this GST registration is not automatic, I think. It is subjected to verification and the erstwhile practices are being followed. No, no. Maybe for some time, for some 2 or 3 years, it was automatic. Thereafter, for some 1 or 2 years, certain phone calls have been received. But now that only after verification and following the erstwhile practices, these registrations are being given. Yes.
ఇక్కడికి వచ్చి ఆ బిజినెస్ లేకపోతే
Hmm.
మళ్ళీ ఈ 3 ఇస్తున్నాడు సస్పెండ్ చేస్తున్నాడు.
Yes, there are certain practical difficulties also in this situation. Suppose if it happens to be the same premises and a ground floor already existing business is being registered, if this person is opting as his principal place of business of first floor, in such a situation also they are able to trace that particular location has already one registration. And also where the registration is on account of inheritance because of the death of the proprietor. First of all, in order to transfer the business of the deceased person to the legal heir, first you have to register the legal heir. You do not have an option to register the legal heir at the same premises because they are unable to give the registration. The system is not allowing. But this legal heir will have to continue the business at that place only. So once you take the registration of the legal heir, then only you will be able to transfer this credit, input tax credit to the successor. So there are certain issues happening, but of course, now that they are coming for a physical verification, they are understanding the issue. As far as succession of the legal heirs is concerned, they are allowing such things. But as far as the other things are concerned, there are certain issues. Now, the notice will contain what are all the deficiencies which they have encountered for the purpose of registration. Now, this person who have applied for registration has to make good all those deficiencies. Then the registration will be granted, else it will be rejected. Now, REG 17. Now, it is a notice which will be issued for the purpose of cancellation of registration. It is a so-cause notice. That notice shall ask the taxpayer as to why his registration should not be cancelled. Now, why this notice will be given? There might be very many number of reasons for which this notice might be issued. Now, this person, taxpayer, may be indulging in certain sorts of malpractices, or he may be violating the conditions subject to which the registration has been granted. If registration is granted, he has to furnish periodical returns within the due dates. That fellow is not filing. He is not complying with the rules and regulations of the law. Or this fellow is indulging in malpractices. This fellow will not have any business. He will do only one business of trading invoices. Now, this has come to the yesterday or day before yesterday, we were going through this point. If I remember, CA Madhya Rajesh was telling that these e-way-bills will also be radio tagged or linked with the NHI FASTags. Now, if I raise a e-way bill, now it should be ensured that that particular carriage details which have been filled in part B of the e-way bill should pass through that one pin code to other pin code, and the in-between checkposts, what are all there, they will record the transaction. Now that it is not automatic, but the GST officer, if he has any, let us say, he has some reasons to believe that this person is a trader of invoices. And he has reasons to believe that the stock is not being moving from one place to other place. No, he will pick the details of the carrier from part B of the e-way bill, and he will try to verify or cross check with the in between check posts in that route. Now he has come to a conclusion that though these many number of invoices which are pretended to have moved goods from this place to that place did not actually happen. Now it is assured that, or he will come to a conclusion that this fellow is indulging in malpractices, and he has violated the conditions subject to which the registration is granted, and his registration is liable for cancellation. But as far as natural justice principles are concerned, whenever you want to take an action, first of all, a show cause notice has to be issued. Now this 17 will serve the purpose. You have to respond within 7 days. Now, if you don't respond, and if the assessing officer is not satisfied with the reason which has been furnished, it is liable for cancellation. Coming to REG 23. Now, what will happen is, this fellow has not submitted the valid cause for show cause notice of cancellation, or the assessing officer is not satisfied. Then in such a situation, what will happen is the registration got cancelled. Now this fellow, within a prescribed time limit, he may apply for revocation of cancellation. Revocation of cancellation is not possible in voluntary cancellation. If someone voluntarily cancels their registration, they can't apply for revocation of cancellation. This revocation of cancellation will be applicable only in cases where it has been suo motu cancelled by the department. Yes. So, subsequent slide we may have. Now, what will happen is, this fellow want to reject the revocation application. This is not for filing the revocation application. We are dealing with notices, but not applications. Notice is given for cancellation, got cancelled. This fellow applied for revocation, but this fellow don't want to give the revocation. He is giving a show cause to reject. Okay, that is application. This is notice. Suspended, notice given, not satisfied, cancelled. This fellow, what he has done? Applied for revocation. But that fellow, what he want to do? He want to reject the revocation. So he is giving a show cause that why I should not reject your revocation application. Yes. Before rejecting the application for revocation, an opportunity of being heard should be given. So this form, right? He has to reply within 7 days. PCT 3. Now this a GST practitioner. If certain persons having certain qualification after writing certain exams, etc., all those rule numbers and section numbers, etc., were given there. Now, once a person is allowed to practice as a GST practitioner, he has certain guidelines. He has to follow certain code of conduct. Now, if he is not following that code of conduct, then what will happen is his registration as a GST practitioner is liable for cancellation. Now, before cancelling, they will issue a notice of PCT 3. This is the format of the notice. You must respond within the time limit mentioned in that notice, right? and you should follow the instructions given in that notice.
నేను ఫైల్ చేస్తున్నాను ఎప్పుడు సార్
No, but nonetheless, for the GST practitioners, there are certain conditions which are required to be satisfied. If any of those conditions are not satisfied, it comes to the notice of the officer. He has reasons to believe the cancellation of the GST practitioner permission given, then he will issue the show cause notice. And they have to pass an exam. After passing that examination, for every 1 or 2 years, they have to again undergo something. I don't remember exactly what are the conditions, but there are certain conditions. So if any of such condition has not been fulfilled, or let us say some person has raised a complaint against the practitioner with regard to malpractice that has been committed by that GST practitioner. This person gave money to the GST practitioner to pay the GST and file the GST return. That person took the money, did not pay tax, did not file the GST return, is not responding. Now, in such a case, if the taxpayer gets aggrieved because the late filing fees and the penalty are to be borne by the taxpayer, in such a situation, the taxpayer got aggrieved, and he has preferred a complaint to the jurisdictional GST officer. Well, there may be certain situations which may warrant the cancellation of the license of the practitioner. Now, refund 8, RFD 8. Now, suppose the taxpayer may be eligible for refund subject to certain conditions. The taxpayer has applied for refund without complying with all the conditions, or maybe he has complied with the conditions, but he did not enclose all the relevant documents which are necessary required to be enclosed. In such a situation, a notice will be given as to why the refund application should not be rejected. Right? So, this is the format, and he has to reply in RFD 09, and the answer which you give or the reply which you give should be proper and on solid grounds. Right? Because after all, it is dealing with the money, the amount of money that is to be taken from the government. So we should be careful. ASMT 2, these are all related to provisional assessments. Now, it is a scrutiny notice. Now, this notice will demand additional information or clarification or documentation from the taxpayer for assessment. This is the format, and he has to give the reply in GST form ASMT 3, and he has to furnish all the information or documents which have been asked for by the authority. You should reply within a period of 15 days. ASMT 6, additional information for GST registration for final assessment. Now, previous one was provisional assessment. Now, this is for final assessment. And under what rule it has been issued has been given there. This is the format, and you have to answer in 3 along with the information or documents within 15 days. ASMT 10. This is one of the famous notice all of you are familiar with. Most of the notices what you receive may be in the form ASMT 10. Now, for what this notice is given? Erstwhile, this is also related to GST returns only. Previously, that 3A is for default in furnishing of the return. Now, this 10 is with regard to discrepancies in the return means that fellow did not default in furnishing of the return, but that fellow defaulted in giving the information or maybe payment of tax. There are certain discrepancies in his return. Now this is the notice form. You have to reply in 11 and you have to state the reasons for those discrepancies. Now, what is the time limit? That is 30 days. This 14 is given why the assessment can't be done as per best judgment norms, right? And also DRC 1 will also be issued because they have given all types of notices. That fellow gave 3A, asked him to file GSTR 1 and 3B and pay the tax. But that fellow, what he has done, he did not furnish the return. Now, the GST authorities are forced to again give notice of this ASMT 14. Before you proceed for best judgment, the beauty of the law is that the taxpayer, before he is penalized, he will be offered many number of, if not many number, at least 2 or 3 opportunities will be given to the person. At the first instance, he was given 3A and asked to furnish returns. But that fellow did not furnish. Now, if he does not furnish, previously we learned that that fellow will proceed for best judgment. Now, before proceeding for best judgment, again he has to give a show cause notice. 14, right? Those rules and provisions already they are mentioned there. The time limit is 15 days. Now, ADT 1. This is also one of the famous notice which you are familiar with. Most of us are familiar with 2 kinds. One is ASMT 10, another one is, and maybe in some cases 3A also. Generally 3A won't come to our knowledge because the accountants themselves will take care. But ASMT 10, ADT 1, of course, these ADT 1s also accountants, if they are dealing, they will be dealing. But for every ADT 1, generally, because we have filed the 9 and 9C, they will be coming for the informations to us only, right? Though we may not directly deal with the tax authorities, at least we may are assisting in giving them or furnishing the information. Because at the time of 9 and 9C, we might have identified certain discrepancies and we might have asked them to pay taxes through DRC 03. Now, the same discrepancies might be founded by the GST authorities also, but for those discrepancies, we might have already discharged the tax liability. So, at least for that purpose, we are consulted by those accountants and the SSAs. Now, this is an audit checklist, and this will be given for the department audit that is under section 65, if I remember correctly. This is the format, and you have to follow the guidelines or procedures which has been given in the ADT 1 itself. You have to follow and assist the GST authorities for completion of the audit. Anti-profiteering. Now, we have understood what might be the reasons at the start of this deliberation. We went through some of the reasons for which notices might be issued. In that, one of the reasons what we have examined is where there is a reduction in GST rate, the benefit of reduction in GST rate, if it not passed on to the customer or the end user, then this anti-profiteering authority will step in, right? Now, they will issue a show cause notice and ask the reasons for not levying penalties. on the person who has violated this anti-profiteering provisions, right? So the assessees should be cautious whenever there is a reduction in the rate of tax to ensure that the selling prices have been decreased to the extent of reduction in the rate of tax. Coming to DRC 1, this is one of the notices which we might have come across. That fellow has done the best judgment assessment, or that fellow has carried out the audit and found out certain discrepancies. Now, after finding out the discrepancies, what they will do is they will crystallize the tax demand. They will crystallize the tax demand and issue DRC 01. Now, what is this DRC? Demands and recovery. For what this notice is issued? They believe that you have short paid. How do they believe that, or how did they come to a conclusion that you short paid? By audit or by some other means. Okay. Now, this is to keep fraudulent transactions in check. And what is the section number and the rule number has been given. The format is also given. Now, within what time you have to reply? 30 days. What is the form? DRC 03. The payment will be made through DRC 03. For payment, you have some 2 or 3 modes. One mode is 3B. Another mode is DRC 03. There is another mode of payment also. We will look into it within a short time. Right? Now, whenever they issue DRC 3, DRC 1, generally it will include tax, interest, penalties, late fees, everything it will contain. We have to make sure that at the time of furnishing DRC 3, you have to give appropriate reason. Not only give appropriate reason, but also ensure that in the right columns, you will pay tax. Right? Of course, there is some PMT 9 or something like that, wherein you can transfer the money from one ledger to another ledger. But if we are a bit cautious at the time of filing the DRC 03 itself, then we may not be subjected to the undue hardships. DRC 13. What will happen is, now previously CA Madhusudan was referring where the input tax credit is not getting reflected because the vendor has not paid. Why to penalize the taxpayer? The money can be collected from the vendor himself. Vendor is absconding. Taxpayer has no money to pay. Taxpayer has no assets to pay. They will go to the debtors of the taxpayer. The debtors of the taxpayer will be asked to pay the dues. So this is the notice. This DRC 313 is given to the debtor of the defaulter of tax. So they will not only collect from taxpayer, vendor is absconding, taxpayer has no money, no assets, but he has some debtors. Money can be recovered from the debtor. Okay. Money can be recovered from the debtor to the extent to which the debtor is liable to pay money to this person, taxpayer. The notice will be given in DRC 13. Now this is the format. Now you have to furnish a reply through 14. You have to furnish reply through 14. Means this is also a tax payment mode. Apart from 3B, 3, DRC 3, DRC 14. Because in DRC 3, you will have the GST number of the person who is liable to pay tax. But here the discharge is by the debtor of the person liable to pay tax. Right? Yes. So this is a new point for all of us.
ఆన్లైన్ లో
పేమెంట్ కట్టేటప్పుడు కూడా ట్యాక్స్ కట్టడానికి లేదు ఏదో ఉన్నది
వాడు చేసిన వయసుకే తల్లి
That fellow, they sold goods to this debtor. No, debtor has to pay this fellow, let us say 50 lakhs. But the tax due is 10 lakhs. That 10 lakhs can't be collected from the taxpayer. So he will proceed with the debtor. He will proceed against the debtor.
హీరో వాడు సర్దేసుకుంటాడు సార్. ఎందుకంటే ఆ డేటా ఎప్పుడో మార్చుకుంటారు. ఇది నోటీస్ వచ్చే వాటికి కొంచెం ఒక 1 year పట్టింది.
Now, if this fellow does not comply with 13, he is liable for prosecution and fines also. Yes. Not only that, whenever for a tax dues, any notice is given on the assets of the taxpayer, it is the duty of the taxpayer that the asset should not be appropriated.
దీనికి ముందు ట్రాన్స్ఫర్ చేసినా కూడా ఇన్వాలిడ్.
That will be get invalidated.
రికార్డ్స్ ఉన్నారు. ఈ నోటీస్ ఇచ్చే లోపల నేను పే చేశానని కన్ఫర్మేషన్ లెటర్ నేను ఇస్తాను. బ్రోకర్ నోటీస్ ఆల్రెడీ పే చేశాను క్యాష్.
No, at the time of giving the notice itself, they will ensure everything, because once the notice is given, why notice will be given? Already audit has been carried on by the department on this person. They have determined the tax due. By that time, they have already examined the books of account, and they are also with the debtors list. That debtor list, they will ensure that the latest debtors list they are having, latest available balance. Now, where the payment is made, that person should be able to prove that the money has gone into the bank account of this person. Cash, again, they are violating the income tax provisions. It is not so easy as far as these things are concerned. Bank account already will gets confiscated. Free. The bank account will be freezed. Whatever balance is there that have been adjusted to the exchequer, and whatever additional amounts would get deposited in the bank account also, to the extent of confiscation, it will be remitted to the government. Else the branch head will be liable. Next, DRC 16, notice for attachment. Now let us say there are certain dues from the taxpayer. The taxpayer is unable to meet the dues either by way of credit or through cash. Then what will happen? Attachment will be given on the property. It will be DRC 16. All DRC series are demands and recoveries. That series itself, DRC means demand and recovery. Go to the taxpayer, else go to the debtor of the taxpayer, else go to the assets of the taxpayer. Whatever, wherever you go, you have to give an opportunity of being heard by way of a notice. Taxpayer himself declares IB. Now, whatever the assets which are left, the first charge will be for the department. Each and every act says that this liability or this due will have the precedence or a priority over the other dues. Many acts will say. Last. Insolvency, it will be the last due. Because that is pro debtor. The law itself is pro debtor. I mean pro creditor. Pro creditor. IBC. Before shareholders, it will come. Right. So, now whenever a notice in DRC 16 is being received, the utmost care what is to be taken is this fellow should not part with the assets on which this DRC 16 has been issued. Right? Even if he parts with the assets on which DRC 16 is issued, the person who purchases that asset, he will not get a title. And that transaction even becomes invalidated. All right? No.
Cancel అయిపోయింది. We receive suddenly cancel అంటారు.
Yes. And if any restricted activities were carried out with that property, the person doing such a transaction would also be liable for prosecution.
Outside. My goodness,
In good faith, you have purchased the property. Of course, then you will have certain recourses as per natural justice, wherein you will proceed for a court, and that, as a civil matter, it will take its own course to resolve it. Right. Now, we have gone through many number of notices, right? Of course, we are dealt with only those notices which will be issued by the department, and we did not deal with any applications that are to be made. Of course, at certain places, we had a reference as to the form in which the reply is to be made. Now, the notice has to be served on the taxpayer. There are certain modes based on which the notice can be served. What are those modes? They have been specified in the sections of the CGST Act. Of course, I am not reciting the section number. It is given for your reference. Email, registered email, dashboard of your login, hand delivery. One of the GST authority may come to the business premises of that person, or the person where he is available, and he can hand over the what you call notice. Next, he can serve the notice. Now, notice may be published in the local paper based upon last known residential address. This fellow is absconding, but somehow, because of Aadhaar number or PAN number, or somehow they got to know the one of the residential premises wherein he resides. They went there. There also he is not there. When inquired, the landlords told the GST authorities that that person has vacated this property some 2 months back. Now, after that, these people could not able to trace the whereabouts of that person. So the last known address was that. Now, in that place, in a local newspaper, they may publish.
ఎన్ని వ్యాలిడ్ మోడ్ సార్ మెయిల్ ద్వారా వచ్చింది మా
Yes, of course. These are given under 169 subsection 1. These are the modes specified in that section. So all these modes are valid modes. Any mode, if it is served, it is valid. Any one of the modes, or any one or more of the modes. First of all, there is a registered mail ID. There is a registered mobile number. There is a login. To all these three, you will get the notice. At least to the mobile number, though you may not get the notice, you will get a message that some notice has been sent. You check your dashboard. Yes, they will give the navigation. That will be given. Right? Next, registered post to the place of business. Okay, or last known address, then if all these modes were not possible, because you may say that registered mobile number, email number, place of business, dashboard, etc. There may be a case wherein a person even did not register himself. He has done business. It has come to the notice of the GST authorities. That fellow became liable for GST also. There is no email, there is no last known address, there is no dashboard for login, there is no mobile number. Then how? You can paste the notice at a prominent place at his last known business address. There may be some people whom you never believe that that person does such a quantum of business. For example, in my street, there are some vendors. Of course, the people, they do not belong here. They have migrated from some western parts of India. Don't anybody, please don't get offended by my words. I am telling a simple example. Every day I wear some pressed clothes, one white shirt, in-shirt, belt. I will go to my office for the last 25 years. I am a small-time earner with earning that money which may be sufficient for my needs and ends. There is a person or some persons who even don't wear proper clothes. He even works on Sunday evening also. He will have a small place of business. I will tell you a classic example. There is one fellow who sells mosquito bats. That fellow has, I am seeing that person for the last 10 years. Okay. And he wished me and I also wish him, because we are living in the same street for the last 10-15 years. We are going to the same place, right? Small shop, mosquito beds. That fellow purchased 300 square yards at the backside of my office. Do you know what is the price of each square yard there? Which will be more than 3 lakhs. One town Kandulavari Street. Immediately at the back of my office, which is vacant for the last several decades. Now that fellow purchased, constructed a 4-storied building. I wonder every day when I go to the office and his building only is beside my window. And I see that this fellow, by selling bats, he was able to purchase 300 square yards at 3 lakh per square yard, constructed 4-storied building in lockdown. You wonder, how is it possible? I am also going there. I am giving lectures. I have delivered many seminars to many people. I read every day 1 to 1.5 hours. I also do practice. So, but we don't understand as to how some businesses are being done. And I even can't understand, even till today, I don't know what he is doing, but he pretends to sell mosquito bats. Mosquito bats. So that is how businesses can be carried out. Why I am saying all these things is not to offend anyone, but what I mean to say is, now the business what that person, I may not be able to find out. The GST department or GST authorities, after some investigation, might find that this person is doing something. Now, by the time this GST authorities got a sense of what he is doing, and he will definitely sense the urgency and he will flee or quit the business. And the last known business is that premises wherein he was selling the mosquito bats. Now, at that place, they may affix the notice. No, this fellow can't even find that place also. There may be some situations wherein they can't give through SMS, through email, through dashboard, through paper, through last known residence, through last known business place where he has carried out. What they can do? They can fix the notice in their office. They can fix their notice on the notice board in their office. GST office. That is the last one. If this is also not found, then as on the last resort, notice has to be fixed on the notice board of the concerned GST authority. Previously, whenever my father, when he used to go to the income tax office, some officers were facing so agony. ఏంటండి ఇంత డిమాండ్లు ఎలా కట్టకపోతే అలాగ చచ్చిపోతున్నాం కలెక్షన్ డిమాండ్ 80 అందుకు అరవటం ఎందుకు సో why to levy demand and why to cry for collection? So if you did not levy the demand, now this position may not arise for you. So so as a last resort, where you are unable to issue a notice in any of the erstwhile modes, the only last resort left over is to affix the notice on the notice board of the concerned GST office. That is the only way out for those people, right? Now, friends, going through all these types of notices, types of demands, recoveries, and what are the modes of service of notice, what we should understand is that whenever a GST notice comes, it should be dealt with proper care and diligence. That is point number 1. Also, as GST consultants or as income tax consultants and auditors for the clients, it is pertinent upon us to inform or to suggest and advise the clients to be always 100% compliant with the GST laws. Right? At least if it is not possible, at least they should pretend to be 100% compliant with the laws of GST. So friends, with this, we ran out of the topic and I thank all of you. Yes, please.
GST consumption base అనుకున్నాను ఫస్ట్ అంటే
that under the erstwhile system of indirect taxation, friends who have actually my deliberations are complete. Just we are discussing some topics. You are free to leave the seminar hall. No issue, right? Sir, at a conceptual level, if I want to explain, the erstwhile indirect tax system, let us say I am in the state of Maharashtra, a manufacturer. I am causing interstate movement of goods. For intrastate movement of goods, local sales tax is applicable. For interstate movement of goods, central sales tax is applicable, which is a central legislation. However, the authority to collect tax and retain tax vests with the state from which the movement of goods is occasioned. Source. When the manufacturer is at Maharashtra, the transaction occasions the movement of goods from one state to another state, from Maharashtra to Andhra Pradesh. Interstate movement. The sale or purchase occasions the movement of goods from one state to another state, wherein CST is liable to be levied. The CST will be, the CST, the authority to collect CST vests with the seller. He will collect the money, remit it to the Maharashtra government.
ఇప్పుడు కూడా ఐజీఎస్టీ లెవీ చేస్తున్నాడు కదా, వాడే కలెక్ట్ చేస్తున్నాడు కదా, మహారాష్ట్ర వాడే కలెక్ట్ చేస్తున్నాడు కదా, ఏపీ వాడు ఐజీఎస్టీ ఇప్పుడు తీసుకుంటున్నాడు కదా.
Yes, I will tell you. That is why, first of all, for all of us, before we go into the GST law and before we go into the GST procedure, it is important for us to understand the concept level. First point. Now this GST is a destination-based tax. What do you mean by destination tax? Previously, the manufacturing states used to flourish. That is why Maharashtra, Gujarat are rich states. To some extent, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, where there are manufacturing units. Why? Because that government used to get the tax money. I from Andhra Pradesh bought goods from a manufacturer in Maharashtra. I paid 1 or 2 rupees. 100 rupees kept by the manufacturer, 2 rupees taken by the state. So the tax money went from Andhra Pradesh to Maharashtra, but it will not happen now like that. I will tell you how it won't happen, because we need to understand a concept of this taxation. Now Maharashtra fellow is the manufacturer. He sold goods to the AP, right? For convenience sake, we will take it as 10%. 100 rupees are transaction value. Now I from Andhra Pradesh, when I buy goods, I paid 110 rupees to the manufacturer. Why? Manufacturer selling price, supply value is 100. You add IGST 10 rupees. Now that IGST 10 rupees, what happened? That money went from Andhra Pradesh to good. When this manufacturer in Maharashtra files GSTR 1 in B2B supply, what he will write? Place of supply as Andhra Pradesh. That money will be parked there. IGST of Andhra Pradesh, that money will be parked and marked. But that money will be with the central government only. Right? Now come to me. What I have done, I am selling it for 120 rupees. 12 rupees is the tax. Now where am I selling? Now you tell me. You are selling in? Very good. If I sell it to Tamil Nadu, it will be a different example. Now I am selling in AP. Now what I have to do? Six CGST, 6 SGST. Okay. Now the actual mechanism comes into play. How are you paying this 6 CGST and 6 SGST? How are you paying? For paying this 6 rupees CGST and 6 rupees IGST, SGST, what you are doing? You are utilizing the IGST. You are utilizing the IGST is not AP's. IGST is with of central government. Because I have an IGST credit in my books, 6 rupees first what I have to discharge? If there is no IGST output, first I will discharge IGST matched with CGST, 6 rupees. 6 rupees government will keep. Central government. But the balance 4 rupees, you are meeting for SGST of Andhra Pradesh met with IGST. Not IGST don't belong to Andhra Pradesh. SGST of Andhra Pradesh is met with IGST. Now central government, what it has to do? 4 rupees, it has to be transferred from IGST account to SGST of Andhra Pradesh. Tax is coming to that fellow IGST. What he has done? Gave it to. So the manufacturing state does not have money now. Collected 10 rupees, gave to central government. So that fellow did not get money. No, AP, how did it get? Because 4 rupees SGST is set off through IGST input. Now central government at the time of making all these mathematics, they have to transfer 4 rupees from IGST to AP SGST. Now this is consumption tax. The consuming state will get the tax. Now this concept is to be first understood. That is how this is consumption tax. This is the mechanism which the central government will take care of. Now, yesterday or day before yesterday, Kishore or Madhi Rajesh was telling that whatever unutilized credit of IGST is there, it should not be left like that. It should be utilized for some purpose. You should not leave it in your accounts like that. So, because if it is left out like that, what will happen is that money will be vesting with government, central government itself. Now the state government will not get their due share. And they are facing the crunch of funds. That is the thing, what we should understand. Now suppose that with raw material procured from Maharashtra, we have manufactured an output which we have supplied to Tamil Nadu. Then what we'll be doing? We'll be collecting IGST. I have IGST. From this output IGST, first set of what is to be done? IGST. So that IGST of Maharashtra, vesting with central government, will be with the central government itself. Yes. Not only that, extra 2 rupees also going to the IGST loan day. Now, if Tamil Nadu person, if he makes a intrastate sale, then comes CGST, Tamil Nadu SGST. If this IGST, ITC of Tamil Nadu person, if it is utilized for the set off of tax of Tamil Nadu SGST, that amount will be transferred to Tamil Nadu. So, because in that point, the ultimate consumption of product was at Tamil Nadu. So, tax will go to Tamil Nadu. So, under GST law, now this is framed in a very good fashion. But as far as implementation is concerned, there are some hiccups. But if implementation is also well planned, it would have been of a great advantage. Now, most of the stakeholders, without understanding the subject at the conceptual level, they are getting confused and they are blaming the government or the vendors. Somehow, because the small persons are losing. Because the small persons are subjected to some hardships. It is there. Why? Because the implementation part is not properly taken care. That is the reason due to which the benefit of this law which has been enacted is not reaching the people or not reaching the stakeholders.
GST set off saying AP government treasury ki vachestha sir GST.
Yes, they will give the money. It will be kept with the central government. IGST, whatever IGST is being collected, ultimately it should go to some state. Ultimately it should go. because of not furnishing the returns in the manner in which they are to be filed or designed, the IGST is getting accumulated there. The states are not getting their due share.
75 lakhs అంతా ఐజిఎస్ కలెక్షన్స్ ఉంటాయి.
Hmm.
ఒక 20 ఈ మిగిలినవి స్టేట్ సెంటర్ కి వెళ్తాయి.
Hmm.
అవి అలాగే ఉంటాయి. అంటే తర్వాత
The center share is for center, but in CGST also, according to some proportion laid down in the constitution, it has to be given to the states. It is not that the CGST will be vested only with central government. No. Whatever central government gets out of income tax, out of indirect taxes, there is a proportion based upon the population. It has to be given to the states. So there is also another agitation being done by certain state government, wherein they are contributing to the exchequer more, but their share, they are getting it as lesser because of the population issue. Some states, though not contributing to the exchequer more, but they are getting more share from them. So there are certain distortions and some tweaking here and there is to be done in order to streamline all these things. Ultimately, it has to go to the consumption state. Yes, it has to go to the consuming state. Because in the erstwhile CST regime also, this money was never taken by the central government. CST was retained by the government of that state from where the movement of goods or the goods occasion the movement from one state to another state. So friends, thank you very much. I am happy that we have come to a conclusion of these 3-day sessions. Thank you all and all.